gotta grow your coins. Grow your coins, grow your coins. Grow your coins, grow your coins. You gotta grow your coins. Grow your coins, grow your coins. Grow your coins, grow your coins. You gotta grow your coins. Grow your coins, grow your coins.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. I am the Crypto Crow, and today we're going to go over some big time conspiracy woo-ha. It is what it is, as I like to say. We are going to be talking about the deep rabbit hole that is stellar lumens, and now stellar or XLM. And, you know, many of us know stellar lumens is basically like the distributed ledger version of XRP, founded by one of the original co-founders of Ripple and XRP. And there's a lot to be said about this, and we're going to dive into it. Also, know I have a new graphics card coming because the Cornucopias team is saying, let's get some footage out there. They've been recently listed on a centralized exchange, which is good for everybody that's tired of using DEXs for any reason. And I will be doing I'll be covering that in a future video. I am still technically on a bit of a break because I am moving, but I figured I needed to just basically do some videos because I'm bored out of my mind, honestly, and I've been waiting and I've been diving down this rabbit hole, and I thought I'm going to share this with everyone and let you guys decide for yourselves what to make of it all. Hopefully in the comments below, because I really need more reading material. I'm actually reading like 6 different books right now. Most of them are audio books, and I flip between them. And I just started Conan, the Cimmerian Barbarian, because I've never read it, and I figure why not? So anyway, let's move forward. Now we're going to dive into this. Now we're talking about stellar lumens, which has really had a pretty decent pump of late, down as low as 7 cents. As of last month, and in less than a month it has almost doubled. It has doubled. I mean, we're at almost 15, almost getting closer to 16 cents. So it's been pumping, and I've been waiting for this for quite a while because I had a feeling it was going to do really well. It was probably going to have some form of comeback, but we don't hear a lot about Stellar as being much of anything. We hear about Ripple, we hear about XRP, we hear about Cardano, obviously, Bitcoin, Ethereum. And we hear about everything but stellar lumens, which is not stellar lumens anymore. That's odd, right? And when I think of the name lumens, when I think of lumens, what are lumens? Well, lumens are lighting, light, to shed light, to bring light, to give light. Lighting is all about lumens. Lumen tells you the brightness of a lighted bulb or integrated LED lighting fixture. So we know that, right? Now, why did Stellar drop lumens from its name? And what was the inspiration for lumens to begin with? Now, when we think of light or light bringers, this name comes to mind. Lucifer, literally meaning light bringer, light bearer, bringer of dawn, shining one, or morning star. Now, before I get too deep into this, I want to basically express that, it's of the belief by some, I won't say the many, but by some, that the entirety of organized religion is the big lie, and that the only truth to be found is through the light bringer, as it were. And there are many who subscribe to this belief that, organized religion is ultimately basically the devil's work in a lot of regard. And there are a lot of conspiracies showing, deep in the Vatican and photos and things related to the pineal gland and the grand serpent in some of the major rooms of the Vatican, and how basically that organized religion is the lie, whereas like these Luciferian theology and belief is the truth, right? And so I don't judge. I'm more of an agnostic. I'm like, if something's out there, cool. I just try to live my life the best way possible, as honest and clean as I can. And whatever happens. I was raised extremely Catholic, and I've seen how toxic Catholicism can be in a family, as well as how helpful it can be. It just kind of all depends on the extent you want to take things. So don't read into any of this as though I am some Luciferian or anything, because I'm not. But I'm just sharing some of the common belief structures around what Lucifer actually means. We've demonized the name and culture to be the enemy, the darkness, the the leader of hell, and all of this other stuff. And who knows? Maybe that exists, maybe it doesn't. But ultimately, when you're talking about light and bringing light or shedding light, ultimately it is a Luciferian ideal, idea. Now, this is a big thing we're going to dive into in a little bit. But before I get into that, I want to get into this. This is Alice Ann Bailey. Alice Ann Bailey was basically born in 1880 and passed away in 1949. But before that, she had founded a publishing company and some other things, a trust and the like. And basically, this is it, the Lucis Trust, which was founded by Alice Bailey, as well as I think her husband at the time. And it's basically like this kind of esoteric publishing company, and they have Schools of the Arcane, Alice Bailey books, The World Goodwill, which is ultimately tied to Stellar Lumens, potentially, and Triangles. Now, its original name for this publishing company was named Lucifer Publishing Company and established by Alice and Foster Bailey in the state of New Jersey, USA, in May 1922 to publish the book Initiation, Human and Solar. So, the ancient myth of Lucifer refers to the angel who brought light to the world, and it is assumed that the name was applied to the publishing company in honor of a journal which had been edited for a number of years by Theosophical founder H.P. Blavatsky. Now, the reason why this is all is kind of fairly important is because there are potential connections and ties to Stellar Lumens, in that the founder of Stellar Lumens is none other than Jed McCaleb. He's the co-founder of Stellar Lumens, and he is connected to an organization called Lucis Trust. Lucis means light, which is a project called World Goodwill, United Nations Sustainable Development Plan that promotes the teachings of its founder. Now, here's the thing about this. I have not been able to find anything other than this written by some rando on the interwebs, so it doesn't necessarily mean any of it's true, but I was not able to find anything related directly to Jed McCaleb and Lucis Trust. Okay, this is all I was able to uncover. This is all I was able to find. But we're going to assume for a moment that this is fairly true, that there probably is some connection. Why? Because the original name of Stellar Lumens. Now, also, Stellar Lumens was originally logoed with a rocket ship. That has changed. Now, it looks more like Saturn or something. It looks more interplanetary, but ultimately a more satiable logo for something to be deemed a potential global currency. All right. Now let's dive into this, because this gets really deep. And there's a lot of evidence to support some of these claims, which I find extremely interesting, which, right now I am doing this video solely because I just find it entertaining, if nothing else. But the rise of the Phoenix, Stellar Lumens, XLM. All right. January 9th, 1988, the Economist released the Get Ready for a World Currency edition of their weekly print, featuring a phoenix standing atop numerous paper currencies which had been set ablaze. Now, this whole article shows the phoenix, and it's difficult to see, but ultimately inside this phoenix chest, it looks like a giant coin, and inside that coin is ultimately the Stellar logo. This is what Stellar Lumens changed their rocket ship to. And I've covered this in the past, but this could either be a marketing ploy by Stellar to basically kind of ride the coattails of a grand conspiracy or a grand idea for a world currency. But the Phoenix will be favored by companies and shoppers because it will be more convenient than today's national currencies. Basically, quotes taken out of this article. Ultimately making a case for a global currency, why it's going to be beneficial, why it will be adopted, and ultimately it's tying Stellar Lumens in as being one of these potential world currency potentials. Convenience matters. Fast transaction processing times are an essential component of convenience that is lacking in most distributed ledger technology. The world Phoenix supply would be fixed with a new central bank, descended perhaps from the IMF. The world inflation rate, and hence within narrow margins, each national inflation rate would be in its charge. The Phoenix will be and is inflationary. A few examples: Bitcoin, Ripple, Litecoin, Cardano, Zcash, Myota, NEM, and Maker are not candidates for the long-awaited Phoenix designation due to their programmatically instilled hyper-deflationary monetary policies. I had to rehearse that in my head for a brief second. Policies many would argue are permanent. Now, this is Jim Rickards on Twitter. Now, and this is old. This is like five or so years old. And I want you to keep that in mind as I'm reading through a lot of these notes, and we can kind of, and this is one of the reasons why this video is important. And if you haven't clicked away yet, good for you, because the idea of this is that so many people were discussing a world currency back before CBDCs were even a thing yet, and back before FedNow was even a thing yet, right? Been a long day teaching monetary economics to digerati, but here goes. Number 1, Bitcoin supply cap. 2, economy grows. 3, so each Bitcoin buys more. That's deflation. 4, over 90% of the dollar market is not base money, it's credit. 5, no one borrows in a deflationary currency. 6, Bitcoin fails. Now, this is all an interesting perspective on how Bitcoin is not going to be the world currency. Bitcoin is a more scarce resource than gold and has a very powerful inflation policy built into code. Less inflationary than gold, and new supply rate can't be significantly modified when price in crappy fiat increases. Incentives are stronger than any other commodity. This is the counter argument, basically saying that in order to have a global one world currency, it has to be inflationary to some degree, because the world's finances are ultimately based and subjected to debt, and deflation is almost counterintuitive to the world economy as it is today. There's a great irony in your point. Inflation and deflation both detract from monetary stability and therefore utility. Zimbabwe suffered from hyperinflation, but the limited supply of Bitcoin points to hyperdeflation. Both are unsuitable for money. Basically, the hyper extension of each, it would be unsuitable for money. Ultimately, he's making an argument that you want your world currency to be inflationary, but very small. So we'll read further. You don't need inflation to run economy, but you do need it to erase debt. All of them. Bitcoin groupies think fixed supply and deflation, more value per Bitcoin, are good. They're not. With deflation, there's no debt market. Without debt, there's no liquidity, no currency. Bitcoin becomes an illiquid collectible. Even gold production grows by 2% per year. So this is a very interesting argument that he's proposing, and I am not an economist. I wish I were, honestly, because I think that there's a lot of sense to be made from this, but some of this stuff escapes me because, yes, as a Bitcoin holder myself, as somebody in crypto, I like the idea of my Bitcoin growing in value. And we're not calling Bitcoin a currency. Are we? I mean, we're not really we call it Bitcoin coins, but the reality is that its primary use case is as a store of value for everything else. It doesn't grow as quickly as the altcoin market valuations do, but it also doesn't drop as much either. And every time it does drop, it still drops higher than its original or previous low. So ultimately, on the grand scale of things, Bitcoin continues to grow in value where others do as well, but they drop as quickly as they rise. And so people are ultimately trading the altcoin markets based off of speculation and some fundamentals, but ultimately we're trading the altcoin market to accumulate Bitcoin. And so, yeah, I'm not easily shocked, but based on my experience at the CIA and what I've seen, okay, this is unrelated stuff. Talking about a spy in the CIA and Russian emails and all this other stuff. It means nothing. I don't even know why it's included in this. Contrary to the hyperinflationary assets, are a class of hyperdeflationary assets, are a class of inflationary assets, including Ethereum, EOS, Stellar Lumens, and Monero. These assets, by measure of the inflation requirement metric alone, set in the Economist Phoenix article, would be eligible for the Phoenix designation. And then it goes further. Ethereum is likely too slow and lacks the scalability necessary to fit this mold, not to mention the insane transaction fees. I mean, when one NFT collection can basically bring your entire blockchain to a bottlenecked halt with insanely high transaction fees, that crosses Ethereum out of any realistic use case on a global scale to me. Ripple lacks an inflationary component and is subject to underlying stability problems. Zcash lacks the technological mechanisms necessary to host national currencies on its platform, in addition to extremely slow transaction settlement speeds and a hyper-deflationary monetary policy. Its current low transaction rate of 26 transactions a second can likely be remedied via ZK Snark transaction bundling optimizations, however. Okay. EOS seems promising. This is back when some of the bigwigs were investing in EOS by the millions and everybody was pumping EOS. I didn't get into it. Personally, I didn't care for it and I didn't understand why so many were, but whatever, to each their own. However, independent benchmarking has revealed the technology does not live up to the hype, maxing out at 250 transactions per second. Definitely not going to be enough to do much. Jesse Lund has stated he no longer holds Ethereum or XRP, and this was stated in a video. Comparisons. Jed McCaleb designed Stellar Lumens XLM to be inflationary, experiencing 1% yearly, contrary to the hyper-deflationary XRP. Jed has recently raised the question to the Stellar community. Should we push to get rid of inflation? No action to bring the idea of removing inflation to fruition has been made public, yet to be determined if this proposed push is serious. Stellar has a history of giving away mountains of coins for free of charge. During a world liquidity crisis, might this be seen as advantageous for a fund such as the IMF? Ripple is unable to give away the vast number of coins it holds. The coins are cryptographically locked in escrow. In a crisis scenario, their coins are simply stuck. Stellar's distribution mechanism appears to be less static than Ripple's and is open to modification by its governance board, with a link to those references. The Phoenix will, in all likelihood, be outfitted to conduct private transactions such as is available with Starlight. The new IMF research shows that with appropriate design, CBDC could meet public policy goals, including financial inclusion, security, and consumer protection. It can also provide what the private sector cannot: privacy and payments. This is back in 2018, folks. This is one of the first mentions I remember about the CBDCs, and this is IMF news. So they're painting this picture overall. And then there's some puzzle stuff associated with it. And ultimately what this is doing is this is trying to demonstrate the connection between the occult, ultimately, Stellar Lumens and its potential for becoming the one world currency. And we're at 20 minutes, and I don't want this video to get much longer, but this is the rabbit hole that you're more than welcome to go down, and it gets even deeper. I'm very curious to think, do you think that this is ultimately a conspiracy that has now died out due to the way that the cryptocurrency market has changed? Or do you believe that one thing that we know, based off of the institutional investors and the people that know the market, okay, and they play the market substantially. This is the big article where it's talking about get ready for a world currency, and this is 2018. I covered this in a video back then, and of course it's showing something that looks similar to the Stellar Lumens logo, but you can see there's only one line through this. There's no break in the logo, and the Stellar logo has two lines. So what is this? That is akin to Saturn, personally. And yes, there are some similarities, but ultimately they're still very different logos in the grand scheme of things. And the thing of it is I think to myself, if Stellar Lumens were to become some form of global currency, which I don't really believe it is, the thing of it is if it were, we wouldn't know, because it wouldn't be advertised. It wouldn't be promoted or pumped or pushed by the big whales or the major institutions or the big banking firms or any of these people, because they wouldn't want to make it more difficult for them to accumulate if that were the case. I mean, think about it. Back in 2018, 2019, we had JP Morgan and Jamie Dimon and Goldman Sachs and all these groups basically fudding the crap out of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency markets as a whole, threatening to go as far as firing employees who even held Bitcoin in their personal portfolios, all while they were behind the scenes building trading desks and laying the foundation for some significant investment vehicles for the cryptocurrency space. Well, why did they do that? Why did they say one thing while they were doing another? Well, because they hold a significant amount of power in the grand scheme of the economy and Wall Street. And they didn't want everybody pumping the hell out of what they were trying to accumulate to help benefit their own holdings and their trading desks before the right time came. I can see something very similar happening. And, we're making this case about Stellar Lumens because, and its Luciferian connections, if you will, if any of this were true, because in the Bible, it talks about the mark of the beast and a one world currency and all of these things that are starting to play out now. And so it would make sense that if you were trying to attach your cryptocurrency project to something of on a much bigger scale than you might be able to establish for yourself, while changing the logo, connecting yourself with some groups that might draw some attention, such as this video is, it might, if anything, at least help pump the value of the token on the happenstance that it could be utilized as a world currency. Personally, I don't necessarily think so, but I'd love to hear your comments on what you guys think. And what did this video forget? What did I leave out? Show me. I want to know, and maybe I'll do a follow-up video. How is Jed McCaleb supposedly connected to Lucy Trust or the Lucifer Trust? I would like to know what is this connection? Where does it come from? But in the grand scheme of things, I'm not necessarily buying that, because it's a pretty flippant comparison and or accusation, even, if you will. But I look forward to your comments down below. Until next time, crow your coins, and I'll see you soon.